All right, you're very welcome along. It's Monday morning. We are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed after what is definitely the best and most interesting sports weekend of the year so far. If you've got anything you want to get off your chest, you can get it to us 0879 180 180. That's the WhatsApp number. Or you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. Pester us however you want, because we're here for it this morning on That's Right.
We certainly are. How are you getting on?
Yeah, pretty good. Not quite as good as you. I presume you're parachuting yourself into the green in the Gillette Labs performance rankings this morning, given that you managed to somehow wangle your way into a corporate box yesterday to watch your own county crown themselves kings of the kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, do I lose badges for this? Does certain privileges within the mafia get revoked as a result of taking a corporate box ticket? Is that what happens?
I think there's this kind of weird regard for the people who make it to the corporate boxes in the GA world, because everybody gets there at some point, right? That's what happens. Like, somehow somebody manages to wangle their way in. They know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and a ticket magically appears. And no one, you're not begrudged it the way you would be if you said you went to a corporate box at Manchester United or Liverpool or Chelsea. You can, because we know, I think you got rewarded for sitting in the rain in Tralee and Killarney this year. Mm-hmm. And where were you in Monaghan?
In Iskeen.
Right.
But it didn't rain that day.
You have the little notches on your bedpost to show that you were at all the games.
Yeah, it's a reward. It's you soldier for so long, and then the ultimate reward is a corporate box where you can drink from a glass as opposed to a piece of plastic.
And the Prosecco was good, was it?
Oh, I mean, possibly the best team in any sport ever is what my thumbs wanted to say after that experience.
And it was a pretty straightforward coronation of all of the kings. You are all kings. You all have lovely kingdom bottoms.
Oh my God! Wasn't it such? It was an anticlimax, I presume, from a neutral perspective, wasn't it? Like it actually looked worse on television than it did in real life. Naturally, we're kind of watching back a few of the scores, some fan footage from the Cusack stands, taken of one of the Paulie Clifford scores in the first half, and it was like, wow, this is walking pace. This really is not kind of even what it seemed from up in our gilded box, to be honest. So I don't know, like there's going to be so many pieces written and said about how much we can or cannot read into what we saw yesterday. But the thing is, we saw a large swathe of people who are going to be in the first choice teams for both of these teams. That goes for Mayo as well. And that, for me, when the weather is good and you're playing in Croke Park, means that you can read quite a lot into it. Not a whole pile, but quite a lot into it.
You are counting every second of that, and you are holding it, and you're like, yeah. That was a real game. The referee kept score. The scoreboard kept ticking over. And I was drinking Prosecco. That's your recollection of the day.
For the record, I was not drinking Prosecco. I wish I was. That would have been a very good idea. But I was not in that state of mind yesterday. But like, I mean, do we just disregard everything? Do we just bury everything and say,
everything else there was true? Everything else there was true. Well, look, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in the performance. Right? We'll get to it with Anthony Moyles a little bit later on. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to get straight into the performance rankings. Daniel Harris is going to join us 8:10. Sports pages at 8:30. After that, we've got Alan Quinlan. Plenty to talk about in rugby. Ron O'Gara is a new contender for the England job, it turns out. Alan Quinlan at 8:40. Anthony Moyles at 9 o'clock. And then the Sunday papers reviewed for you properly at 9:30. But it's 7:34 this morning. It is time for the Gillette Performance Rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Right, so every week we do this, and you can get involved by telling us what you think is going to happen, and you could win a Gillette Performance Lab starter pack. Best place to enter is on Instagram the night before, but you can still do it now. Get your comments in. Use the hashtag OTB AM. If you're a Twitter user, you can leave a comment on the Facebook page, or indeed, you can get us in the YouTube comments. Owen, take it away, baby.
Well, we will start in the red, as we do every week. We've got a couple of rugby storylines to get through before we get into some golf and then GAA to finish up this morning. So our first item in the red is Munster in at number 5 this morning after their performance against Leinster on Saturday night. Not an overly surprising outcome, I guess, Leinster beating Munster well, considering Leinster have been a bit ahead of Munster over the last little while. But it does feel that every defeat is just more disappointment, because there is a feeling that the tide will turn eventually, but when that moment is, it remains to be seen at this point. I guess when you're experiencing this thing live, that hope definitely kind of washes through you. You're like, okay, this may be two different teams on two different levels, especially when you looked at what was going to come from the Leinster bench. But you still had that moment in, what was it, the 39th, 40th minute, right before half-time, where Devon Toner gets picked up by Scannell, and Peter O'Mahony is like brought to a horizontal, and it's like the biggest man ever has been picked up and slammed to the ground by Munster people. Munster in the lead here at home in a boisterous Thomond Park. May not have been fully sold out, but it's still a boisterous Thomond Park. We've lifted up the Leinster man and slammed him to the ground. That's it. That is the turning of the rivalry. And then Munster end up losing the ball off the scrum, and Leinster actually go into the break in the lead. And that for me was the sort of turning point and indicative of what was going to come later in the game. And what was it, 46 minutes on the clock, and they're like, yeah, we need to bring on an absolute world-class front row. Sorry, we can't call front rows world-class, remember. I forgot about that lesson. But we're going to bring on a very, very good front row just to crush you and make sure that this is going one way and one way only. And I think that second half probably exposed a chasm between these two teams, especially when the game opened up. And as we all know, Leinster, very comfortable in chaos. And once chaos ensued, a thrashing ensued.
It was an absolute thrashing. Like, there's very difficult to dress this up anyway, other than the game was over, as you say, pretty much at half-time, because that score seems to have taken some psychological life out of Munster, which really shouldn't be happening when they're at home in a game which has some relevance. Maybe we shouldn't overstate it. Maybe there's a bang of the league final off this game, because there are bigger things to come down the line, but never give a sucker an even break, right? Like, try and win this game.
Oh, by the way, I'm bringing that back later on. People take note, never give a sucker an even break is Jurgen Roy's catchphrase. That is coming back when we're doing the GA later on, but sorry, continue.
Well, I had been thinking about it in the context of the GA, and it just popped into my head with this one. It's like, how often do you tell Leinster they are superior to you before Leinster are like, I mean, we know we are better than you, to the point where we're just going to crush you every time. Like, I don't know. I found there was a bang of Kildare versus Dublin in last year's Leinster final off the post-match comments about they're just better than us. I mean, they were too good on the evening. Well done to them. I think we gave away 6 breakdown penalties in the first half. That gave them access. The first try was a direct result of that. I felt they took the game away from us between minutes 48 and 60 with 2 very good tries. They just took it from us like candy from a baby. We fought to the end. That was never an issue. I thought we played pretty well, but if you give them access, they will punish you. Then maybe build a wall. Get an alarm system. Don't give them... Except you guys are giving them the keys. You're like, oh, the door's open. Come on in. Make yourself at home on our couch. We've laid the beers out for you. That's the access they have to your front room. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next while, because there is the bang of lame duck off this at the moment. And you'd have to say that the next 2 weeks, you need to see a big performance and a big result and a big turnaround from Munster. Otherwise, this is another lost season in the brilliant careers of those players who are, it seems to me, not being served properly at the moment.
Like, it's hard to argue with what you're saying there, and when it comes to giving them access into the game and maybe laying down for Leinster, you could probably make a case for that maybe in terms of the quality of the team or the game plan potentially. But what's kind of strange for me is that Munster never seemed to be laying down for their opponents mentally. And I know it is the old cliche about Munster that they don't stop fighting and all that sort of thing, but even into the second half, you had that moment when Thomas O'Hearn goes up for a ball, and, you know, like himself and Ross Maloney get into it, and it's not a brawl or anything close to it, but it's a bit of a schmozzle, and it's like, right, they're still bringing the fight on that level. Like, there was a moment kind of before half time where you had Carberry darting around a few players. Peter O'Mahony makes a few very hard yards, and then Lockman, I think, as well. And like they're really just grinding out every single phase, which kind of says to me that yes, there is a gulf in class between these teams, but Munster haven't thrown in the towel yet in this rivalry. Like, I can see what you're saying, but I don't think that permeates through every part of this team just yet, and I definitely don't think it permeates through a whole swathe of players who are just ready to say Leinster are better than us.
Well, but the coach is saying it. Coach is saying they're better than us.
Yeah, but I think I actually think there may actually be a disconnect between what the coach would be saying and what some of the players would be thinking.
Well, that's not a great scenario, is it? How are you going to beat the best team in the country unless everybody is completely unified and going after the same target day in, day out in training? It's like what Ralph Rangnick is saying about Manchester United. This has just been chaotic over the last number of years, and it feels like things at Munster have been kind of chaotic. Like what was the plan in signing those players that they signed? What identity were you trying to create? What problem were you trying to solve? Where's the evidence that you've got anywhere closer to solving the problem?
Yeah, but who are you talking about there?
Van Gran and the hierarchy at Munster, who have followed this course of action and who wanted to keep Van Gran. Like they want more of this. That's what they volunteered for, and he's walking away. But like the Munster hierarchy wanted more of what we're seeing right now.
And what about the relatively fair mitigating factors in terms of the players that Munster were missing and the fact that they just do not have the depth that Leinster have? And yes, I know you're everybody listening. He's falling asleep on his hands on his desk.
Team wasn't exactly their first choice team to start the game.
The whole thing about Leinster is that their depth is the thing. The Leinster depth is the thing, in fairness.
Okay, so sure, the school system in Leinster is really good. We understand that. But have Leinster also been better at, like, getting more players through? Like,
Of course they have. Of course they have. And, like, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So there are structural issues, of course. But what has the coach and the hierarchy done to mitigate that? They invested in Damien de Allende, who's leaving. They invested a lot of time and effort and caps in Chris Cloete, who's leaving, who wasn't good enough.
Well, I mean, he was good enough to play a lot for Munster over the last few years.
Exactly.
So, like, what are you going to do? I'm going
to sign better players. But
he was good enough to start for Munster.
But he wasn't. He was never good enough to start in a Champions Cup.
Multiple different coaches thought he was.
Well, but because that
in Pro 14 games beyond.
Grand, but like I actually think that is one of the key problems, is that the recruitment has been bad. You're bringing in players who are fine, grand.
Well, de Allende is not fine. I mean, de Allende has just won the World Cup. Snyman they got desperately unlucky with. The Jenkins thing is going to be really interesting now. He's been desperately unlucky with injuries as well, to see if he actually has a great career at Leinster.
Cloete is actually more important because he's played more games than any of them, right?
And he's your week in, week out guy.
And he has been a weak link. He has not been worthy of his place in that team ahead of several of those academy players who actually haven't ended up getting the experience that they could have got. Like it makes no sense to me to have signed a bunch of players who, like, what was the point of that?
To make the team better. And
did it make the team better?
Well,
can you say hand on heart you think the team is it's a better team when Chris Cloete is in the team than when he's not in the team?
Well, I would say that many Munster coaches have thought that the team is better with him in the team because of the amount of games that he's played.
Those Munster coaches, how have they done?
Well, I would tip my cap to them and say that they know a lot more about rugby than I do.
But how have they done? What's the outcome of what they've done?
They haven't been as good as Leinster.
Well, how good have they been? Have they been better than many other teams?
Being second to Leinster in
Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and other teams have won the league over the last decade.
100%. But I'm not saying that Munster have been going well or anything like that. It's just that the magnitude of how big the disaster is just a very interesting thing to pick through.
I think that they've failed to diagnose the problems. I think that stuff like, he's okay, is the problem here. Is it excellence? Are they striving for excellence? Are they striving to actually win stuff? Or are they trying to just be second best?
So when they sign Cloete, that's probably like 5 years ago at this point. It's
longer, I think.
Probably longer. And maybe they do diagnose that. Maybe they say, listen, we can continue to sign from abroad, but they need to be better players. They need to be, an RG Snyman or a Damien de Allende standard player.
And de Allende's leaving. It's not like he's bedded in, we didn't see the best of him. We didn't see the best of him, but he hasn't become somebody who is cleaved forever to the bosom of Munster. He took the money for a couple of years and he's gone straight away. And he's a professional rugby player, so that's his job. And I don't in any way begrudge him that. But it hasn't been this massive success in that they haven't been able to capitalise on it.
I think there's two different strands here. It's Munster wanting to develop their own talent, but also that takes time. And when you have to fill those holes that time creates, you want to win now and you want to try and get as many victories as possible and win trophies in the here and the now. I do think that once they signed Snyman and de Allende, the time for the future was not gone, but it was they had to start turning this into trophies right now. They failed to do so. That's been a failure. That's been a failure. What'll be?
That's where we're at. This is a failure.
But
this regime is so they've got 4 weeks to pull it together, to pull something out of the bag here, to completely rewrite history. But and if they do that, that's an amazing turnaround. But it is a turnaround, and it is amazing.
But I guess and what will be interesting now next season is, you know, the sort of players that I think maybe we still talk about in a future sense with Munster are going to be the now, and I think they just kind of have to trust that. And if they look back on some of the signings they've made, and like they've been really unlucky with Snyman, for example, if they look back on that and say, listen, we need to go on a different direction here, we need to trust the next generation. In fairness, the next generation of players we've been talking about for years are 23, are in and around that age at this point. So they are ready to go now, but it will become maybe a new Munster over the course of the next few years. That comes with a sense of excitement, but you have to say that over the last little while that there hasn't been any proof that it's going to lead to any sort of silverware.
Our results like the one at the weekend, where they don't really manage to throw a punch, literally or metaphorically, on Leinster, is that not like actually damaging in the long run? When you say it's a sense of excitement about the new Munster, you really hope some of those new players coming through are as good as we think they will be, because the crowd needs something now to get behind that isn't, well, this is all well and good, but actually there is a superpower that we're not ready to beat. It's a bit like the Leinster Football Championship, where it was very hard for anybody outside of Dublin to get excited about anything that was going on, because you knew at some point you were going to run into the buzzsaw, and the buzzsaw is there, and without any sense of belief that you can get through that, then everything else kind of becomes pointless.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, the buzzsaw was also quite threatening because everybody else running into it was crap. Whereas I think that the gap between Munster and Leinster is smaller than, say, Dublin and the rest, for example. It's not as hopeless as that, and that's why we're having this conversation. If it was a team or a province that has no expectation or any hope,
how much closer is it? How much closer is it? Come on. When does it feel close now? It's a home game. It's a home game, and it's over just after half-time, and it finishes 34-19. It's nearly double scores.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that close.
No. But it's not Leinster Championship far, is my point.
Double scores.
Like,
it's not far off it. It's getting to that point.
Are you really saying that this is...
Well, when's the last time there was
Dublin
a win?
scoring 5 goals against me, then whatever, 2020. Do you actually think it's that much of a gap, that it's completely comparable? And like, is there not credence in the fact that Munster suffer more when they're missing key players than Leinster do, just by dint of the fact that their squad isn't as good?
Okay. You keep making excuses. It's fine.
I'm not looking for excuses. I'm making reasons. Like, I mean, there's no... Like, it has been a failure of a few years.
You just want to love your team, and I understand that.
Trophies.
You should love your team. You should. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have done this. It's not fair. It's like, it's a post-mortem in public, and you're like, not fair. I understand that you're too busy. Your blood is still 1 part Prosecco, and it's like, how can I be expected to defend this team?
Yeah, Prosecco's good though. Will we move on to the other rugby talking point?
Yes.
Yeah, CHRISTOPHE URIOS.
Who's this guy?
Is in the red. Everybody knows CHRISTOPHE URIOS. He is the Bordeaux head coach. On Saturday night, Bordeaux were beaten in the top 14. They were beaten by Ronan O'Gara's La Rochelle. This is the first in a trilogy, by the way. They were playing the top 14. They're playing twice, back-to-back legs in the Champions Cup over the next couple of weeks. It was a big game. La Rochelle were trailing Bordeaux, still are in the league table, but they had to try and close the gap. Tensions pretty high in the game. Just before the referee blew for half-time, O'Gara was kind of on the pitch cheering his team on, like a big moment for his team. Gives it the big one, as you do. And as you can see here on screen, URIOS does not take this very well whatsoever. He kind of comes out a shot. You can see Ronan O'Gara's reaction to what he says. He's not happy whatsoever. He squared up to him, face in face, like Pádraig O'Hora and David Clifford. And in no uncertain terms, Ronan O'Gara tells him to get away from him.
Is there a flick? Is there a flick?
So from L'Equipe's live blog, they said the tension is enormous on the pitch and on the sidelines where URIOS and O'Gara are arguing. The tension is palpable in this Atlantic but not peaceful derby. Clashes on and off the field have punctuated these 40 minutes. And I guess afterwards then you had questions being asked of the coaches in URIOS. He says... He referred to O'Gara as la fout la merde, which roughly translates to he's effing shit. while also calling him unbearable. And he went on, kept calling him unbearable. How can he enter the field, talk to guys? He is lucky, really. He goes to the stands, he curses up in the stands, he Fs and he shits on the edge of the field. This guy is unbearable. O'Gara didn't necessarily go to that level in his post-match comments. He said it's nothing important. He did not appreciate that I encouraged my players after a ball recovered near our line. I'm a young coach. I need to talk a lot, and I want my players to hear me on the pitch. I have a lot of energy, and it's important that I pass it on to them. This is celebration policing from the Bordeaux head coach. That's all this is.
Yeah.
That is all this is. Something has gone against you in the match.
Bordeaux, fancy wines.
And look, I understand. I understand. You know, the sensation of not wanting other people to be happy if they're happy for something that goes against what you wanted to be happy for. But I mean, you're an actual head coach of a team. You're an actual professional. Although you are a professional who has a little bit of form in going after other head coaches. Step up Fabien Galthié, formerly head coach at Toulon. Let's look at this exchange from a few years ago. Like, just keep watching this, URIOS. A little push.
Galthié.
Galthié is just scolding him.
He has his hands in his pockets like Rod and the Queen.
Watch this, watch this.
Oh! What?
It's like, he basically was like, you got something on your jumper and then flicked him up.
Oh, he smacked him in the face. That is like, fair play to Galthié for retaining his composure in that instance.
So Urios is in the red.
I think if Urios better be careful. He couldn't be trying that with. Can't be trying that with our fella.
Yeah, imagine if he did that to ROG.
I mean, no.
Ronan O'Gara's had a busy weekend, actually. The back page of the Irish Independent. O'Gara would love to have a go at the England job after Jones, Ben Coles and Rory O'Connor reporting that he's thrown his hat to the ring to become the next England head coach, describing the role as a cracking job. He was on BT Sports Sunday yesterday. And he said, yeah, it would be a great job, I think, actually. What a team. I think there's so much potential there. Serious rugby players, serious passion for the game in England. It's a cracking job. He'd love to have a go at it.
Yeah. I mean, all joking aside, I don't think he's actually saying right now, this is a job for me. But it's definitely, everybody's on alert. It's like, you know, I think the turnaround in their season, the season started slowly for them, but they've roared right back into it. And he is proving himself to be one of the best and most interesting and dynamic and exciting coaches who's going to bring the attention. Like, if you're the owner of any of those clubs in England or in France, looking at what's going on, it's box office, and it's the type of exciting rugby that you really want. It's like his team plays a brilliant style. So, you know, I mean, if he was to get the England job, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't it?
Like, it'd be hard to hate them anymore. I mean, you'd have to, but it would be hard to.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm sure the players would do a pretty good job of allowing us to continue to hate England, but what an opportunity it would be. Like, it does feel that it's kind of, it feels like these next 18 months are an audition for everybody who associates himself with the England job, because I presume, and I guess it is a bit of a presumption, that Eddie Jones will be there till the end of the next World Cup. But you have like Rob Baxter, who said last week that he's happy to speak with the RFU about the England role, and he's kind of really put his name out there as somebody who would like to get the job. So there's going to be a slew of coaches within the Premiership as well who would want this and who are English, which would obviously be a crucial factor for the next England boss, you might suspect. Not that it's right or wrong, because I think Eddie Jones has done all right, especially when it comes to the World Cup, and he may well have a great World Cup next year, but I think there might be a sense that the RFU will want an Englishman next.
Yeah, they have said that they would prefer an internal candidate and definitely an Englishman, so perhaps O'Gara's not really in the mix for it. But you never know, stuff like this where, like, if he was to go on and win the European Cup this year, is that the level that you would need to be at before you'd have enough currency with the English hacks? Or would the fact that they actually all know him and remember him as a brilliant player buy him enough time for him to be the antithesis of Eddie Jones, who would be, you know, approachable to them, happy, they would be happy that he's got the gig? There'd be a honeymoon period. How long would that be, I suppose, I'm asking?
Well, if he wins the Champions Cup, you'd have to say that that puts him right into the frame for a test job, really. I'd say he's possibly test ready for a number of different nations already at this point, but winning that Champions Cup would definitely buy him the credit with the English Hacks. But the playing career being recent as well is such a big thing, and like I'd say that even the character he is, if you're talking specifically about the Hacks and the English media, like I think that O'Gara is quite generous when it comes to his quotes, when it comes to what he says. He's very honest, forthright. I think he doesn't necessarily invite any sort of negative publicity or any sort of negative agenda.
Right. Comments coming in. Eamon says, when did every station have such a pro-Munster bias? Always concentrating on Munster. Look, Munster are a team of excuses. Next year. Give it a break. Ulster now, number 2. Leinster win again and good performance. And all the media talk about Munster. Is OTB AM sponsored by Ivamec, Barry's Tea? Michael says, should Munster not develop their own players better?
Well, that would be nice.
And Tennis Tank says, too early for this arguing. Haha, it's only for Owen. He's still daydreaming of David Clifford and just how good he looks on that Croke Park pitch.
Everybody from that province should be as good as him, is just my point.
What if David Clifford played rugby?
Like that is not a question. That is not the first time I've heard that question. That question definitely got floated in the aftermath of the 2019 World Cup. What if he managed to, funnel all that talent into the Irish rugby team? Would we win a Rugby World Cup?
Where would he play? I mean, you could stick him outside centre. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could stick him out half. You could stick him full back.
Yeah, a bit of a possibly.
Stick him number 7.
It's hard to know just because. Considering his style, is he like a Jacob Stockdale type player potentially even? But Stockdale's probably faster.
I don't know. It's hard to know. Well, certainly, speed running with the ball, you would say it seems like Clifford is as fast as any human being has ever been. I don't know. Maybe the hype train has left the station and it's too late.
Do you reckon?
Maybe it's not. It's just, and it's so disappointing. He just never shows up in the big games in Croke Park.
Yeah,
it's so disappointing. Are we doing him next, or what do you want to do?
Well, let's just move on to the Amber first because we got to go.
Sorry, I forgot about the traffic light system here.
The traffic light system. It's the British style, isn't it? Amber before green. Tiger Woods in the Grand is usually what we call it Amber, but we can't really call it the Grand. He's an Amber because there's just a whole pile of uncertainty around Tiger Woods at the moment. There's no decision made yet as to whether or not he's going to play Augusta. But he showed up to Augusta. He's practicing at Augusta. Yesterday, Evan Priest of Golf Digest said, I just watched Tiger Woods on the range here at Augusta National. Warm-up lasted less than 20 minutes. Worked from wedges up to driver. He did, and in block caps, not miss a shot. Every shot was flushed. Has not lost any speed. If that doesn't get you and your juices flowing for the return of Tiger Woods this week, then I don't know what does. Billy Horschel says, he looks like the Tiger we saw before the accident. Tiger hasn't played since Augusta at the end of 2020 at a top level event, and his comeback with Charlie at that competition last December probably raised a few eyebrows. It's very hard to kind of decipher that unless he's actually playing competitive golf, once he's playing round after round. He did tweet yesterday saying that I will be heading up to Augusta today to continue my preparation and practice. It will be a game time decision on whether or not I compete, and that's what the latest is on that. There's going to be a press conference tomorrow, and I suspect tomorrow, I think it's going to be like 6 o'clock Irish time. That's probably when we'll know whether or not Woods is going to make the comeback. But I guess, where are we setting the bar on this for this to be an extraordinary comeback? Is it him playing and making the cut? Is it him being in contention? Is it him just playing at all this week? Is that actually where the bar is now? Either way, it's going to be the talking point this week.
Look, if he plays and doesn't make the cut, it's a nice story. But if he plays and makes the cut, it's one of those kind of American comebacks. If he plays and makes the cut and in any way is in contention, it's one of the best sports stories. But do we know exactly the extent of the injuries? They all sounded pretty horrific. But again, did he speak openly about it, or was it all kind of second and third hand?
Well, he did say initially, I was just looking forward to getting outside. That was the scale of what we've heard from himself. I think he was initially wheelchair bound after the accident, and then slowly went up to crutches and then started walking unaided like this. And for a man of his age, is absolutely incredible if he gets back to being a competitive sports person. Obviously, the talent that he has makes it more plausible. Anybody else, you're thinking to yourself, this is absolutely impossible. Even, wasn't it the Hero World Challenge when he was sitting down at a press conference and he said that he was in pain while he was sitting down doing the press conference, spoke about the dark moments that he had during it. It definitely feels like this is the hardest thing to come back from, potentially, and that is saying quite a lot in Tiger Woods' career. But the context of that is that he is a few years older at this point. Actually getting back to being competitive it will be quite an achievement. 25 years this year, by the way, since '97 and that famous first green jacket.
It is funny how his perception has changed from public villain to beloved old folk in the space of a couple of years, isn't it?
Is that because we've come to like a general understanding that humans are flawed and people have done worse things than Tiger Woods, especially in sport?
I don't know. That whole other people have done worse things doesn't really seem to cut it in most walks of life.
No. No, but I wonder, is there a sense that, sports people have let us down in so many other walks of life, and our brain has only a certain capacity for, hating people and
we forget.
throwing a cold shoulder to people. And also he's Tiger Woods. Also the fact that he's absolutely sensational is 100% a factor in everybody's forgiveness. But even forgiveness kind of feels like a bit of a gratuitous term.
Right, to the green.
The GAA stories we'll get to in a moment. CHIEDOZIE Ogbene, very quickly before that though, an extra time goal for him in the EFL trophy for Rotherham yesterday, scoring the winner at Wembley. An absolute screamer. If anybody didn't see this, the Papa John's trophy went the way of Rotherham as a result of CHIEDOZIE Ogbene's goal. Extremely hard for us today. So credit to Sutton afterwards, the proper player speak, but really, this was just another incredible moment on what's been a fantastic 12-18 months for Ogbene, and you're just seeing this story play out that we've, I guess, kind of had a preview to in the international scene, and now is becoming a little bit of a thing in England, not for Rotherham fans, of course, but for maybe fans of other clubs who are like, okay, this guy is exceptionally good, and I wonder, I'd be very interested to see what happens this summer. I wonder where his ceiling is actually going to lie.
Goals like this get you moves because everybody sees them. So whenever a manager goes to a director of football, or whenever a director of football goes to an owner and says, this is the guy we're signing, it's like, all right, I can get behind that. This is an exciting, explosively talented, on the face of it, young player in terms of the number of games that he has played at a senior level, but certainly who seems to have the maturity to deal with it. And it's very exciting. Like, this is a proper, we should start getting excited about the future for him and Parrott and Michael Obafemi. We've got a list this week. We had to do a list this week of near misses. Obafemi scored twice the weekend. Authority scored again. Like, is it a coincidence that all these players are beloved by their manager and being given confidence and getting a bit of man management for the international? Maybe it is. Maybe it's a complete fluke. It's nothing to do with Stephen Kenny. But it might be. Anyway.
I wonder. It's like it's not nothing. The international windows. It's sometimes just brushed off as everything has to plug into the club scene, and everything you see in the international scene is a product of it. But they do spend some time in the training ground. They do spend some time together. It's not like they don't
they're
do any
phone
work
calls and texts. Jack Burns getting the texts.
Yeah. And it's not a sort of dismissive hear about yourself being spoken down to in a press conference. It's I'm actually quite good in the eyes of my manager.
Yeah, he thinks I'm brilliant.
Yeah.
He's told me I'm brilliant again and again, and then I go and do something and he's like, I can't actually do the stuff he told me I was going to do. So, right.
We'll move on to the league winners. Waterford, Kerry, big wins at the weekend, I think it's fair to say. Waterford, goal. It's the one way to beat Limerick potentially this year, is with goals. All these little, beautiful daisy cutters, not daisy cutters, but ones that just bobble off the grass, was how they found the back of the net pretty much on all their occasions. And I think people are really talking up Waterford as a potential All-Ireland winner at this point, not just a contender. We'll know after Limerick's first championship game, I dare say, as to how real that is. That's the real litmus test as to where Limerick are going to be once the championship kicks off. Still very much favourites, but Waterford, you'd have to say, very much second favourites at this point. So a great day for them, bad day for Cork. A sixth national final defeat for Patrick Horgan at this point, and it feels like a little bit of a step backwards, but still I found out loads about Saturday. Then Sunday, Mayo against Kerry. I guess, did Mayo find out as much as Cork, less than Cork as a result of yesterday? Felt like they weren't very interested after a certain point in the game yesterday. The flip side of that is that Portugal Horror seemed to care quite a lot. Was he just out in an island? Was he on his own? Did the 14 other players not care and he did care? Or did their performance completely let themselves down, and are we now rushing to the conclusion that they didn't care? Very, very hard to find out what the truth is.
You tell me. What do you think?
I think that just because they massively underperformed, that they were missing 5 key players, doesn't mean that we can't read into something this game. We can't just bury it and say that doesn't matter. I do think that some of the players that they're missing, of course, a fully fit Cillian O'Connor will transform that team. Paddy Durkin always plays well against Kerry. He would have made a huge transformation. And Diarmuid O'Connor in the peak of his powers at the moment. There's no way you can make a case that they don't transform.
But they might not be available if the teams meet later on in the year, right? Like the injured players and the absentee players, you can't automatically include them in the starting lineup on the day of the next match because you don't know whether or not they're going to be fit, and you don't know if Cillian O'Connor is going to reach Killian O'Connor standards this year, coming back from an Achilles, it might be next year before he's back to his best.
Yeah, maybe. So I gave you a little bit of a preview earlier. The never give a sucker an even break theme from yesterday is Mayo should have been looking at Kerry and saying to themselves, never give a sucker an even break. The last time Kerry beat Mayo in Croke Park before yesterday, Dublin hadn't even won one of their, 7 All-Irelands. It was 2011, the last time Kerry actually got one over Mayo in Croke Park. That rivalry has completely changed over the last little while. Mayo have gone down to Tralee and won there plenty of times. Like, not that they were under the thumb, Kerry, from Mayo, but there was definitely a team that Kerry had started to fear, or had feared, really, over the last little while. Granted, I mean, they couldn't have just shown up and decided to beat Kerry yesterday. Kerry were very, very good. But maybe there could have been more of a psychological win if they'd thought about it on the day. Like, if you go back through Kerry's recent record in Croke Park before yesterday, appalling, really. Since they won the 2017 league final there, they played there 12 times and only won twice. It was a terrible, terrible Croke Park record going into yesterday. That's why it was a significant win for Kerry yesterday in the context of this year, is because they've won a relatively big game in Croke Park. No, it doesn't mean all that much. You saw the players at the full-time whistle. They don't care too much about winning a league title. But psychologically, I think this is a big thing. They went down to 14 men for 10 minutes in the second half, and Mayo, for a second, thought that they might be able to launch a comeback. What happens at that point? Shane Ryan, who hasn't been the first-choice goalkeeper, pings, kick out, nails it. The next one, he nails it. The next one, he nails it. And that, for me, is what you can read into from yesterday. When the pressure was on, not for the full 70, 80 minutes, but when the pressure was on in those moments, Kerry actually did step up. I think that's a big hurdle for them to overcome yesterday. I think Mayo had an opportunity to make that hurdle a little bit more difficult for a rival, and they failed to do so. So that's what I'm reading into yesterday.
Yeah, I think there's always a fair point, and I think the same applies from Waterford's perspective, is that they actually do benefit from a national title at this stage in their evolution, and that is a management team who is getting absolutely everything out of that group of players, who still have many other players to fit into the team over the next 5 or 6 weeks when the Munster Hurling Championship explodes. So very, very excited about what Waterford are doing. Like, the one thing you would say is that maybe Cork didn't quite have championship intensity, although I don't know why. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't have had, because it felt like they needed to win one of those games. So I don't think Cork are as damaged as some people are telling us in the aftermath of that game. I definitely think that it's a new competition. It starts in 2 weeks, and away we go. Let's wait and see what happens in that one. But the Munster Hurling Championship is like as good a sports competition as there is. It could be even better if they all played each other a bit more often. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's as good as you can hope for. And you should pay attention to every single second of it, because it's going to be lit. Mayo's performance was so vanilla, and their defensive structure didn't exist. So we talked to Colin Boyle a good bit over the last couple of months, and he talks about adding +1s and always having an extra sweeper. There was none of that there was none of that.
Yeah.
So they were like, we don't care. Clifford is clearly going to win that battle. But what happens later in the summer if they go again? There's like a fire in Ahora that, like, Ahora +1, is it the same result? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Like, I mean, himself and Mullen took turns on Clifford and Tralee a few weeks ago, and obviously the result was much better from Mayo. Leaving him one-on-one, leaving anyone one-on-one with Clifford is obviously going to be a bit of a nightmare. But later in the summer, if they play again, you've all of a sudden got Sean O'Shea to worry about in that Kerry attack. Like, they had Gavin White to worry about yesterday for only half the game. Like, anybody who was there will have seen that Gavin White was not the same player after that head knock. Like, in the second half, he was struggling for a long time before he got taken off. So you got barely half a game out of Gavin White, no game time out of Sean O'Shea. They've had to navigate the last few weeks without two of their best players. Like, Clifford's amazing. Clifford's possibly going to go down as one of the best players of all time. But Sean O'Shea and Gavin White are absolutely incredible players. Absolutely incredible players. Arguably the two best players in their position in the country right now. And Kerry basically haven't had them for the last few weeks. So, like, I think there was a lot of talk after the game in Tralee a few weeks ago that, you know, who has more players to come back in. I think Kerry probably had more players to come back in than Mayo that night. But I think in the context of yesterday, given White did play some game time, I think Mayo clearly have more to come back in from that night. And maybe Mullen does make a difference. The fact that he didn't implement some sort of defensive structure does illustrate to me that they didn't care about yesterday.
It's a key indicator that...
Yeah. What I would say about that, and I need to watch the game back, but, like, it didn't feel as if Kerry were overly stringent on their defensive system either. They defended very well, and they defended in numbers, but Tadhg Morley dropping back as a sweeper, certainly if you watch the first 5 minutes of the game, they went man-to-man, and he dropped back a little bit, and then he went man-to-man for a little while. So I think this idea that Kerry, had sweeper back and kept him there, which they had done for a lot of the games this year, that actually wasn't true yesterday. So I wonder, did Mayo tap into that a little bit? They were like, okay, well, there's actually no extra man here for us to drop back because he's not doing that. So I don't know. You need to kind of rewatch the game to see exactly where he was, because you're trying to keep up to speed with what's actually happening score-wise. Yeah,
I do wonder about how, rewatch the game. Well and good, but actually, when it comes down to it, if that was an All-Ireland semi-final, Mayo are lining out totally differently. I'm not saying that they have different. So say they only had that available selection of players, they're still playing totally differently. They'll be much more super defensive. They will have a specific plan for Clifford that they weren't revealing yesterday.
Yeah, totally. The fact is though that it was 15 points of a difference. I think that's an easier thing to take away if you've lost by 6 to 8 points.
Definitely. You would have thought that they were much closer, even if they go 15-15, that it ends up that way. But
they lost by 13 points in the 2006 All-Ireland final, which is often painted as complete. It was worse than that.
Yeah, it was. It was. And that game was over after 8 minutes.
Doesn't matter,
And is Shane Ryan now the goalkeeper?
Yes, that was the big thing. Yeah, yesterday was an absolutely huge game for Kerry. They needed to win yesterday. They needed to put those goals to bed, and the goalkeeper needed to have a big day. And Jack O'Connor, he's played this league perfectly. What's happened now is that he's got a goalkeeper who is his #1 guy, who's put in a really good shift in Croke Park. And also his backup has got experience throughout the league. So
okay. So it's Jack O'Connor's a genius. I get it. You love him. Why don't you marry him? I get it. It's great. You're fantastic. But what about this, Owen?
Yeah.
What about the fact that you absolutely mullered Tyrone in the league last year?
Oh yeah.
Don't forget that. That's what I'm saying.
But
never give a sucker an even break. Maybe you're the sucker.
But what are you? Okay, maybe. But what do you say? How have we been given an even break? I don't know.
You've been allowed to waltz through thinking you're deadly and winning a national title.
No, nobody's saying that.
Celebrating, we are the kings.
No, nobody's saying that though. I think.
You're the ball.
Who are you backing in the semi-final if it happens?
Oh, you have to back Kerry.
Kerry Dublin, Croke Park, Full Hill.
Kerry Dublin.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting
to see.
You're
thinking about it. You're thinking about it, exactly, and everybody's thinking about it.
Well, Kerry are the favourites. Kerry are 3-point favourites as it stands today if that game happens.
Nobody in their right
5-point favourites.
Nobody in their right mind is thinking that Kerry are going to waltz this All-Ireland. That is absolute nonsense.
I think the price is telescoped now. Everybody, it's Kerry in their own tier, and then after that, it's everybody else.
I'm not putting that money on.
You could have a #1 Kerry in the power rankings, and then you could have joint fourth. It would be Mayo, Dublin, Tyrone, and maybe somebody else.
A little bit of a preview for the power rankings this week. Tyrone are clearly going to be an All-Ireland contender this year, and they are the one team who beat them this spring.
All right, 12 minutes past 8. That is this week's power rankings.